the shadowy alleys of noir to the twisting corridors of mystery, Detectives and Dice brings you thrilling tales of tabletop intrigue. Grab your fedora, roll the dice, and sharpen your wits, because in this game, the clues are hidden and danger lurks around every corner. Tune in now for a new case, and maybe a few surprises along the way.
All right, so today we're diving deep into Victorian London with the Baker Street RPG. Just imagine, right? Gaslight, fog, the whole atmosphere, and of course Moriarty lurking in the shadows. But there's a twist.
Ooh.
Sherlock Holmes is gone. Vanished.
So no Sherlock. That's interesting. What happens then?
Well, that's where you come in, the player. You're working with Dr. Watson, trying to solve all these mysteries that are piling up at 221B Baker Street.
Wow, no pressure then. Stepping into Sherlock's shoes.
Exactly. But we're going to try to figure this out. We've got the game's rules, some reviews, even what people are saying online in the forums, all that.
So it's like we're investigating the game itself, not just the mysteries in it.
You got it. And Baker Street, it's not your typical RPG, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They've got this thing called the Sherlock die. Throw some randomness in there. And a threat meter keeps things tense. And character creation. Forget just numbers. You define your whole persona.
Sounds like they really wanted to nail that Sherlock Holmes vibe.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, first things first, the setting. We're not just in any old London. It's 1891, specifically, like peak Sherlock era.
Right. Gaslight, those horse-drawn cabs, you can practically hear them. And that feeling, like anything could be hiding around the corner.
And don't forget, this is London changing, right? Science is coming in, but the old ways are still there.
Yeah.
And the criminal world, thriving.
Perfect setting for Sherlock, really.
It's no coincidence this game came out when shows like Elementary and the BBC Sherlock were big. Everyone was into Victorian detectives again.
Yeah. And this game, it really captures that. It's not just a background, it affects how you play.
The gameplay. Forget about Dungeons and Dragons and all that. This is about using your skills, like Sherlock would, to solve mysteries.
You pick a profession, Victorian era, obviously. Could be a doctor, like Watson, or maybe a journalist, even a street urchin, whatever fits. And each one, they have their own skills you use to find clues, get to the truth.
And you can specialize too, right? Become like the expert in something specific.
Exactly. Like imagine a doctor who's really good with poisons, or a journalist who can disguise themselves perfectly.
So those specializations, they give you an edge in certain situations.
Sure. Makes your character unique.
Now there is combat, because even Sherlock had to throw a punch sometimes. But it's not the main thing, right?
Right. And the way it works is kind of different. Turns aren't set. The players choose who goes next. Makes things interesting strategically.
Oh, and here's a twist. The game master, they can actually take 2 turns in a row. Talk about keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, you're never totally in control. Things can happen. Got to be ready for anything.
Okay, let's talk about the core of it all, investigation. Baker Street breaks it down into 3 parts. Observe, reason, and then deduce.
It's a system, yeah, but it doesn't feel stiff. You got to be methodical, look at the details, and work together, It's not just one genius detective. It's teamwork.
I like that. So let's say we're at a crime scene, right? Dark alley, locked room, whatever. What happens first?
First, you observe. Game master, they describe everything, but you got to decide where to look, what to ask about, that kind of thing.
And this is where your skills matter.
Right.
Right? Like the physician might smell something, or the locksmith notices a scratch on the door.
Yeah. Everyone sees things differently. And it's not just finding the clues, it's putting them together, figuring out what they mean.
Okay, so we've observed, we've got some clues, now what?
Then you reason. Start putting the pieces together, figuring out what's important, what's not, making some guesses, using logic, like Sherlock would.
But it's not just sitting and thinking, right?
Yeah.
There's still action happening.
Oh, yeah. Remember that threat meter? Time matters. The longer you take, things can go wrong. Evidence disappears, the villain escapes, all that.
So there's pressure, even though you got to be careful and methodical. Makes it exciting.
Right.
So we've observed, reasoned, hopefully we're narrowing things down. What's the last step?
Deduce. This is where you test your ideas. Ask the game master questions, yes or no, see if you're right.
So it's like a battle of wits. You and the game master, each question getting closer to the truth or maybe leading you astray.
Exactly. And every question, everything you do, it could make the threat level go up. So you got to be smart. Choose carefully.
It really captures that back and forth, that intellectual thing that you see with Sherlock Holmes.
It does. And it feels like you're working together, not against each other.
Now, we talked about the setting, the investigation, but what about the characters? What kind of investigators can you create?
Well, Baker Street gives you a lot of freedom, I guess. You can make a character, that really fits how you want to play. It's not just picking one from a list. You're building someone with their own good and bad stuff, their quirks, all that.
So more than just picking a job and some numbers.
Way more. They use these things called characteristics, personal, professional, and then negative. It's how they add, depth to your character.
Okay, so person characteristics, what are those exactly?
They're the traits, that define who your character is, how they see the world. Brave, compassionate, curious, those kind of things. Or maybe they're a little arrogant or tend to be reckless. And these traits, they're not just there for show. They affect how you play, what decisions you make.
So like a compassionate character, they might stop to help someone, even if it slows down the investigation.
Right. Or that reckless one, they might just rush into danger, make things worse, raise that threat level, put the team at risk.
Gotcha. Now, what about these professional characteristics? Are those just about the job you picked?
Well, they're connected, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's deeper than just the skills. It's how they approach their work, what they believe in, their reputation, that kind of thing.
Like, give me an example.
Okay, so you're playing a doctor, right? One professional characteristic might be dedicated healer. Means they always put their patients first, no matter what. Or maybe it's pragmatic scientist. They're more about facts and logic.
I can see how those will play out differently. How they talk to patients, how they gather clues, even the choices they make during the case.
Exactly. And it's not set in stone. These things can change as your character, goes through stuff, gets more experienced.
Okay, makes sense. Now, time for the tough part. Negative characteristics. Nobody likes to think about their flaws, but I'm guessing those matter in this game.
Oh, they're huge. It's what makes the character feel real, like a real person. And for the game master, it gives them ways to challenge you, throw in some twists.
So we're talking, what, a bad temper? A gambling problem? Maybe they're scared of heights? Something like that?
Yep, all those things. And the game master can use those, put your character in a tough spot, tempt them to do the wrong thing, something that might mess up the investigation or even get them hurt.
So, like the gambler,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're tempted to steal evidence to pay off a debt. Or the one afraid of heights, they freeze up during a chase on a rooftop.
Exactly. And you, as the player, have to decide, does your character give in or do they find a way to overcome it?
It really seems like this game, it digs into that idea of conflict, the struggle between good and bad inside of us.
It does. And it's not like cheesy or anything. It feels real.
So we talked about these characteristics, but how do they work in the game? Is it just for role-playing, or do they actually affect things?
Well, both, really. They can help with role-playing, sure, but they also matter mechanically. Remember, resolve.
Right, that like inner strength you use to push through or resist stuff.
Yeah. Your characteristics, they determine how much resolve you start with and how easy it is to get more.
Meaning, a brave character, they have more resolve and wouldn't get rattled as easy, but someone who's timid, they might struggle to stay calm under pressure.
Exactly. And the game master, they can use your characteristics to create situations where you gain or lose resolve.
Give me an example.
Let's say your character, they have a bad temper. Someone insults their family or accuses them of something they didn't do. They could explode, let the anger out, but that might cost them some resolve and make the situation worse.
Or they could hold back, show that they're trying to be better.
Yeah.
That might earn them some resolve.
Right. It creates these moments where you got to make a tough choice, a moral choice, It makes the characters feel more real and their choices matter more.
And of course, resolve itself. You spend it to do better in those skill rolls, resist temptation, all that.
It's like those moments in the stories where Sherlock has that flash of brilliance or someone shows real courage.
Okay, we've covered character creation, those core investigation parts.
Yeah.
But what about the world itself? How does Baker Street really bring Victorian London to life?
It does an amazing job, honestly. It's not just a background, it's a real place that affects everything.
So you're not just solving mysteries in a bubble. You're interacting with the city, the people, the whole culture, even the secrets.
Exactly. The game, it describes everything, the different areas of London, who lives there, the customs, even the hidden places. You can almost smell the pipe tobacco, hear the horses on the street.
And it's not just the physical stuff either, right? There's that whole class system that Victorian England was known for.
Oh, definitely. Social status, it's a big deal in Baker Street. Affects how people treat you, what you have access to, even how the law works.
So someone from a rich family, they'd have a totally different experience than someone from the working class or even the criminal underworld.
Absolutely. Being wealthy, it opens doors, gets you information, even protects you from some of the bad stuff.
But what about someone from a lower class? Wouldn't that make things harder?
Not always. They might not have the fancy stuff, but they know the city better, they have their own connections, and they blend in easier.
So it's about using your social status, or lack of it, to your advantage. Finding clever ways to get things done.
Exactly. And the game mechanics, they account for that. Your social status affects your starting resources, how easy it is to get information, even how you deal with the police.
So, how could social status affect an investigation? Give me an example.
Okay, let's say you're trying to get into a private club where a suspect was last seen. Someone with high status, they just show their membership and walk in.
But someone from a lower class, they might have to bribe the doorman, sneak in, maybe cause a distraction.
Right, and each way has its own risks, right? The fancy person, they might overhear something, but they could get recognized too.
While the working class person, they're harder to spot, but they got to rely on being sneaky.
It adds a whole other layer to the game, and it shows that even in Victorian London, where things were so strict, people still had choices. They could take risks, control their own fate,
Okay, we've talked social status. What about the criminals, the bad guys? We're talking petty thieves or Moriarty-level villains?
Well, the game has it all. Regular crooks all the way up to masterminds. And the game master, they can make up their own too.
So you could face a Jack the Ripper type, a Moriarty, even a whole secret organization, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And each one, they're different, right? You got to investigate them differently, come up with different plans.
And that threat meter, I bet that comes into play a lot here. A Moriarty would definitely make things more dangerous faster than a pickpocket.
Oh, for sure. The threat meter, it shows how dangerous things are, how urgent. A powerful villain, that definitely raises the stakes.
So you're not just solving a puzzle, you're doing it under pressure. Time is ticking, you could fail, all that.
Exactly. It keeps things exciting. Now, we've talked setting, characters, villains. Let's get to the heart of it, the mechanics, the stuff that makes it work. We've mentioned the Sherlock die a few times. Time to explain what it is.
Yeah, this isn't your normal six-sided die. It adds a whole other level of chance, little chaos, maybe some luck to everything you do in Baker Street.
It's like having Sherlock Holmes at the table with you, giving you hints or throwing curveballs.
So let's break it down, shall we? 6 sides, right? Each one representing something from Sherlock's world. What can you tell us about them?
Well, think of your regular dice, but 3 of the sides on this Sherlock die, they're numbered, just 1, 2, and 3. Simple, right? But when you roll one of those, it makes all the matching numbers on your other dice count as successes automatically.
So, like, I'm picking a lock, I roll a 2 on this Sherlock die, and I've got a couple of 2s on my other dice. Those become successes, boom, I'm in.
Exactly. It's like a little help from fate, especially if your character's good at that kind of thing. But it can get tricky, too.
Yeah, because the other side's the die, those can really shake things up.
Oh, yeah. One side, it's got Moriarty on it. Sherlock's big enemy. Roll that, and it's like he's messing with you directly.
And that means any dice that weren't successes, they actually count against you now. That's rough.
It's a reminder that you can be smart, make plans, but things can still go wrong. Sometimes luck's just not on your side.
But it's not all bad, right? It's got to be something good on that die.
There is. One side has Dr. Watson, represents teamwork, that helping hand.
So rolling a Watson, it's like having a friend jump in to help.
Exactly. It gives you a free assist. You can use it to help another player on their turn, give them a bonus. Or you can save it, add an extra success to your own roll. Shows that even Sherlock, he needed help sometimes. Working together is better.
Love it. It really fits that whole collaborative feel that Baker Street has. Okay, we've got numbers. Moriarty, Watson. What's the last side?
The one you always hope for, Sherlock Holmes himself. Roll that, and it's like a moment of pure deduction. Everything clicks.
All right, tell me, what does it do?
You get to pick any number on your dice, and every die showing that number, bam, they're all successes.
Hold on, so even if I roll terribly, just one success, but then I get the Sherlock face, I can look at my dice, pick any number, even if it's not there, and say it's a success.
Exactly. Like in the stories, when Sherlock suddenly figures it all out, it lets the players have those moments of brilliance, too.
That's amazing. The Sherlock die, it really adds excitement. We never know what's going to happen. Yeah. Every roll matters.
It does. And you got things strategically, too. When do you use your abilities? When do you take a risk? When do you rely on your team? Lots to consider.
Okay, so we've talked about how the game works, and I gotta say, Baker Street sounds pretty great. But what are people saying? Critics, reviewers, what's the overall opinion?
Mostly, it's been really positive. People like the investigation system, how it's different. You know, in some mystery RPGs, it's like you're trying to outsmart the game master, which can get frustrating.
Yeah, because you're not trying to guess what they're thinking. You're using the game itself to find the clues, make your own deductions.
Right, and the way it's structured with that threat meter keeps things moving, makes it tense, everyone's involved.
I've also seen a lot of people say they love the setting, all the details, how it feels like you're actually in Victorian London.
It does a great job with that. The atmosphere, the gaslight, the fog, the busy streets, even the class system, it's all there. And the detail, it's in the mechanics, too.
One thing that stands out from what I've read is how social status isn't just a side thing. It really matters in how you play.
Yeah, for sure. Your social status affects everything, from finding clues to dealing with the law. It creates interesting situations, makes you think strategically.
Now, no game is perfect. There's got to be some criticisms, right?
Yeah.
Anything you've seen come up a lot?
A few things, yeah. Some people say the investigations can get repetitive if the game master isn't careful.
I can see that, especially if you play a lot. But it seems like that depends on the game master, how creative they are.
Definitely. A good game master, they can use history, stories, their own ideas to create mysteries that are different and engaging.
Another thing I've seen is that the combat, it's there, it works, but it's not as interesting as the investigating part. But I guess that makes sense. Combat isn't really what Baker Street is about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Combat has its place. But the real strength of the game is in those moments of deduction, when you figure something out, when the team works together to find the truth.
So overall, it sounds like Baker Street is a really good game, well-designed, and it offers a unique way to experience that whole Sherlock Holmes world.
It is. If you like mysteries, deduction, Victorian settings, you'll probably enjoy it. It makes you work together, think strategically, be creative. And it's not just about solving mysteries, it's about understanding people, facing your own biases, making choices that matter in a world where good and evil aren't always clear.
Well, we've covered a lot today,
Yeah.
from the streets of London to that Sherlock die. And I'm really impressed with Baker Street. It sounds like an amazing game.
It is. And if you're looking for a game that'll challenge you, use your imagination, and take you to a world of mystery and adventure, definitely check it out.
Remember, the game is afoot. Who knows, maybe you'll be the next great detective to solve mysteries in Baker Street. Until next time, happy sleuthing.